Hello, my name is Renelle, and I'm a PhD student with the lab Mémoire, Cerveau et Cognition, and I'll be presenting for you my thesis topic, which are cross-cultural evaluations for social cognition. So firstly, what is social cognition? So social cognition is it's our cognitive ability that allows us to be able to perceive, interpret, and adapt to our social environments. Essentially, it's what allows us to behave appropriately in social situations. It was actually identified in the DSM-5 as one of the 6 core cognitive components necessary for healthy functioning. And this makes sense given that deficits in social cognition can be seen in really important neuropsychiatric as well as neurodegenerative diseases. So, for example, autism spectrum, schizophrenia, frontotemporal dementia. And so you could see that to be able to properly assess social cognition is really important for diagnostic as well as prognostic reasons. But there's a problem. And the problem is that the tests that we currently have for social cognition have been developed only from one particular type of culture that falls underneath the umbrella of those being Westernly educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. So why is this a problem? Because we know that culture significantly impacts our behaviors, what we can determine as being socially appropriate. And it even goes so far as it impacts our very neural pathways. So this is just one example of a study done in 2012 that showed that there was different amygdala activation between cultures on the same emotion recognition task. So this means that we know that if we take someone from a diverse background and we have them do a test that was developed for weird cultures, they will score more poorly, not necessarily because of their actual cognitive ability, but because of this cultural bias, which then, of course, has major consequences for their diagnosis and their healthcare management. So at this point, you might be telling yourself, okay, well, why don't we just then create tests for all sorts of cultures? The problem is that there are thousands of cultures that are constantly evolving. So taking one test and adapting it to multiple cultures in the world is actually very difficult to do. So then researchers ask themselves the question of, on the opposite end of the spectrum, is it possible to remove the element of culture? Can we have tests that are culture-free? And again, the answer is no, given the importance of culture and behaviors and on the brain. So then the question becomes this: what is the middle ground between these two extremes? And this is the topic of my thesis: is it possible to have a test that is cross-cultural, meaning a test that, although isn't appropriate for all cultures, can be appropriate for numerous cultures in social cognition? And so you might be asking yourself then how we plan on doing this. And the answer is with a new age tool, virtual reality. Virtual reality allows us to not only create and simulate a social environment, but it also allows us to immediately adapt it to the culture of the person being assessed, which of course is not possible with traditional paper and pencil tests. And so this is the topic of my thesis, and hopefully this clarifies the subject of cross-cultural evaluations for social cognition.